A new Star Wars journey begins in the place all good journeys begin. At, well, the beginning. This Star Wars Day, I'm excited to introduce the new Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, where we will piece together the complete story of that galaxy far, far away, in timeline order, from the dawn of the Jedi through the great unknown following the sequel trilogy. This is a podcast for both Star Wars superfans and complete newbies. Listen to the short intro episode now to hear how it works and what to expect over the coming weeks as we set the stage for the new television series The Acolyte, which we will be covering with weekly breakdowns. Subscribe to the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast wherever you listen to take part in one of the most epic and expansive stories ever told, following all the twists and turns from start to finish. May the 4th be with you all month and beyond.
Welcome to the Sonic Screwcast, with the Lorehounds, your guides to all of time and space. I'm John.
And I'm Elysia, and this is our coverage of the BBC and Disney Plus series Doctor Who.
In this episode, we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 4, titled Boom.
And while we enjoy discussing the show amongst ourselves, we also want to hear from you. Please send an email to tardis@thelorehounds.com or visit our website at thelorehounds.com/contact and either use the contact form, or you can leave us a voicemail with the built-in voicemail app, and then we can drop that right into the episode. And you can also join us on our Discord server. We have a fun and welcoming community, and we have a dedicated channel for Whovian conversations and a whole bunch of other things. You'll find links in the show notes below.
Also, please consider subscribing to us on Supercast or Patreon for as little as $3 a month. You'll get ad-free episodes and a lot more. Subscribing is a great way to help us make more timey-wimey podcasts. Elysia, we're back. And surprisingly, kind of, because originally you and I were going to do one
Just
episode every few episodes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's worth talking about more in this shorter format.
Yeah, so I think that's a good segue into that. Is I think that you and I are going to do these shorter episodes that are going to allow us to cover every single episode individually, and rather than like some get lost. Mm-hmm. I think that's what happens when you group them. Some of them just get a little bit lost. And we are currently covering House of the Dragon and The Acolyte on the same feed. Plus, you're doing Beacon 23 and your Star Wars project. We have so many things going on. So I think if we're going to be able to do Doctor Who in full, we're going to have to manage it. So anyway, spoiler warning for everyone. We're going to talk about everything that's ever happened in Doctor Who. No holds barred, including this episode. We did a spoiler-free sort of impression on the season in our first podcast on the season, but now we are going to stop doing spoiler-free takes. We're going to go right into our spoilery hot takes. Elysia, right. What'd you think of the episode?
I am of the opinion that this is the best episode of this season so far. This was
interesting.
I love the combination of Davies as showrunner and Moffat as writer. I just found it had a great mix of pathos with a bit of humor in it. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's absolutely flawless, but it was a strong episode I think I'll be thinking about for a while.
Interesting. Yeah, I too love the Moffat-Davies conversation. And I'm going to continue to say Davies because I'm a dirty American. But yeah, it did feel at times a little bit... Sorry, what was that?
I have a Welsh background. I
fair enough.
Represent.
It did feel at times that it was a little bit too Moffat-y for me.
Okay.
Like it was just very like, okay, angst until the moral at the end. And I was like, that is Steven Moffat. I do love Steven Moffat. I think he writes a great episode, and some of my favorite Doctor Who episodes were written by him. It wasn't my favorite one on first watch, but I think upon reflecting on it, I like it more. It's got good themes, a little on the nose at times, but it was targeting my homeland, America. It definitely was a what the fuck is America doing episode.
Although they were the Anglican Marines, which is
I
very
want to talk about
British.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was to mitigate that a bit.
Well, I
You know
mean,
what
but
I
that
mean?
was, he used the Anglican Marines during the 11th Doctor run at one point, too. This is, I think, the second time they've shown up. Don't quote me on
Oh,
that.
did he really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Because I was going to bring up that he used that company, the war company, a couple times before.
Okay, yeah. No, I like that he's bringing stuff back in, and yeah, we also got the quote at the end about fish fingers and custard. So
Yes.
yeah, Moffat's definitely being like, "Hey, remember me? Remember when I used to write?"
I thought I saw somebody say that line was Moffat doing the Obama putting a medal on Obama meme.
uh, fair.
Well, anyway, I think it was good. And I really did like seeing Shuti have to play a more serious version of the Doctor.
Oh, he blew it out of the park for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with a lesser actor, this episode wouldn't have worked. Like
Mm-hmm.
this needed to be carried by facial emotion
Yeah.
and the tremble in his voice and the song and all that. Plus his great chemistry with Ruby. I don't want to undersell her.
Mm-hmm.
Just really, really great job to both of them. I mean, this really showcased why they were a good pick to bring back the series with.
Yeah, and we got to meet our new season 2 companion.
Yeah, I have questions on that. Do you know if that character is going to be who the companion is, or if it's going to be a different character?
I mean, I'm thinking that character. They did leave it open. He says at the end, "I will be popping in every now and then." So
Right.
they definitely leave it open, and I think because she played such a prominent role, yeah, it makes sense. I saw an interview with her. I posted it on the Discord. Where she was saying that, yeah, when she filmed this, she had no idea she was going to be the next companion. And then they called her months later and told her.
Oh, okay. I wonder if it was always the plan.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't, at least they didn't tell her when they were filming. I think maybe they just really liked her in this episode. And they're like, well, this would be an interesting dynamic to bring back in.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I did really enjoy her work in Andor. That's the only other thing I've seen her in. And
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing her do more things with the Doctor, but I guess we'll have to find out how that happens.
Yeah. Verada Sethu. Yeah, she played Sinta Kaz in Andor, and I liked her there too. And I liked that this was. I didn't necessarily. I mean, of course, she looks the same, except she has short hair here and blah blah blah, whatever. But she's playing such a different character and doing such a good job playing this character so differently that it took me a beat to connect. It's like, oh yeah, that's Sinta.
It's funny though, in that interview, just in the thumbnail, I didn't watch it yet. In the thumbnail, you can see her like beaming with a smile. I'm like, that is not either of these characters. It's so different.
No.
So she's a good actor. That's what that means.
She seems a very bubbly person.
Yep.
But I liked the character, and I'm excited because, I'm excited to see more. At the end, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely want more of. Her maybe more than the little girl was fine, Splice, but she was. Child actors are difficult, you know.
Yeah, every now and then you get a really good one. I don't know if this was in that category.
No, there was some weird things going on, like when the first half when they were interacting on the base, that I thought really worked well. But then when she came out to the battlefield, I was like, what is going on with this little girl? Like, does she not realize that her father is dead? Why is she just like looking at pictures without crying? Yeah.
Well, it's a really weird thing that they do, and a cool thing they do with sort of pairing AI afterlife with Christian afterlife, right? Because these are Anglicans and they believe in heaven. They believe in a second, in a resurrection of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she's going to Rubio, like, oh, he's just dead. He's not gone. It's like, it's such a weird soup of faith and science.
Yeah. There's some, I just have to point out, there's some interesting overlaps with the Beacon 23 plotline.
Okay.
About the AI and afterlife. Yeah.
Well, I was just expecting when she kept saying, "Where's my daddy?" for her to start going, "Are you my mummy?" And then,
oh no, yeah,
a lot's starting to happen.
I loved, by the way, speaking of the dads, that her father was named John Francis Vater, which of course Vater's a play on father, and also he's a minister, so he's a father. Ha 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 ha.
Mm,
And did you
that's cool.
notice? Did you notice the doctor said to him, from dad to dad? So
Yes.
it's another offhand reference to the fact he has a granddaughter, but then actually the fact that, and why haven't I really thought about this before? Who is Susan, his granddaughter's parents?
Absolutely no idea. And I don't think it's ever addressed in the show.
Okay.
It's just presume, you know what I mean? We can
Yeah.
assume that he had a wife or partner or something and had kids, but I don't know how that happened at all. Is she an adopted grandchild? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's very
Yeah.
odd. I really hope they bring her back, and I hope that it's good. And I hope I hope that they make
Well,
her more developed. Like in the first episode, I remember the doctor wants to go away from where they are, and she's like, "No, grandfather, I love Earth in the 20th century." I was like, okay, all right, okay.
yeah.
So I
So
really want them to bring back a real, like, interesting time lady.
yeah, I haven't watched those episodes, but when I look up the character, the descriptions are like about people, the fact that people complained about,
Hmm.
yeah, what a stereotype she was.
You know what's interesting is that, Barbara is, so the doctor starts with 3 companions. So it's funny how now that's like the really unusual thing, but
Mm-hmm.
he always had like more than one companion in the beginning. And it's interesting to see that, like, Barbara, who was Susan's teacher, who like gets sucked into the adventures, is
Mm-hmm.
actually really complicated and has her own motivations. They do fall into stereotypes sometimes, like she's always the one who advocates for peace and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, I think that it's just interesting that they were like, oh well, this 15-year-old though, this 15-year-old is going to be super super whiny and one-sided and constantly causing problems with her emotions.
Somebody had beef with their own teenage daughter.
That's funny. All right, why don't I give a quick synopsis and then we can talk more about the
Okay.
episode specifics. Episode 4 is titled Boom, written by Steven Moffat. The Doctor and Ruby Sunday land on a war-torn planet called Castarion 3, where metal robots kill anyone with even temporary injuries to avoid raising the costs of the war. The Doctor steps on a landmine and remains balanced on one foot to avoid detonation. Ruby finds a tube the Doctor can use as a counterweight, which turns out to be the remains of a recently deceased father and his AI recreation. When Ruby is mortally wounded and the nurse robots surround the group, 2 Anglican soldiers are there with them. The Doctor appeals to the AI version of John, father to father, and gets John to hack into the War Corporation's servers and disable the mine and the robots, saving everyone involved.
Oh, but then you forgot. There's also the tragic love story, which I have to say,
Oh,
I liked it actually, because they completely surprised me, because I thought, the father dying, that's the tragedy of the episode. And then we have this love confession, then immediately dead. Like, what?
mm-hmm.
Well, R.I.P. Kanto.
I did leave that out because I cared very little about it.
I was into it. I was into it.
That's fine. We all like different things.
Mhm.
Speaking of, tragedy in this whole thing, I mean, this whole episode centers around capitalism and the war machine and religious wars. It's like a soup of,
Mhm.
it really does feel like a critique of like the American system and the English system at some points, right? Like
Yeah.
the Brexit system kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just I thought the most interesting quote to me in the episode was faith, the magic word that keeps you never thinking for yourself. And he walks back on that at the end when,
He
he's
does.
like, faith is, how you keep the people you love in your heart. And there's a
Right.
quote that I yeah, have wanted to talk about a little bit. But yeah, they do go hard on organized religion in the episode.
They do, but at the same time, I think they show that like this, organized religion is a really bad thing in some ways, but
Hmm.
faith within that organized religion can give some peace, like the way that Splice remembers her
Yeah.
dad and says, "Oh, he's not gone. He's with me still." even though he's dead. And so it's
Yeah.
you do see the different sides of it. I think it's pretty nuanced, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think faith is like anything else. It just depends how you use it. You know, if you use it to bury your head in the sand, then you're doing yourself and the world a disservice. If you use it to hold on to the things that matter to you, then yeah, then that's meaningful and valuable.
Right. Or as a reason to be kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. And I always think of the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I don't know if you've read that
Mm-hmm.
one.
I haven't. I've heard a lot of stuff spoken about it, and from what I've heard, because I think it pulls from a lot of other books that I've read, so I'm
Okay.
familiar with the ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's he does this big thing on religion, and he says, I don't limit religions to, theological ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm to calling a religion anything that you basically put your faith in. And that could
Mm-hmm.
be capitalism, it could be the flag, it could be your country, it could be
Okay.
your chess group, right? Like anything that you really like, your ideals, that the rule of law, that's a religion in his view.
Yeah.
And I think that he basically says, if you don't have a God-based religion, a theocratic religion, that's fine, but you got to replace it with something else. And
Right.
like, just because we as humans need to kind of believe in something. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an interesting idea, and I think it reminded me of that when the doctor is kind of walking back his statement. He's like, well, I do believe in his mantra, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
believes in that sentiment that they say in The Day of the Doctor. I can't, never cruel nor cowardly, right? All these
Yeah.
things. Like that's his religion, in my view.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting that he's singing. We hear him singing at the beginning. Well, not at the beginning, because actually I have to say that I forgot it was Doctor Who for a minute at the beginning because I was so sucked into the episode. And then the Doctor and Ruby show up, and I'm like, oh yeah, right. But then when he steps in the mine, he's singing the Skyboat song, which, by the way, I can't not think of
Hmm.
Outlander because that's a theme song for Outlander. But it is, as he points out, it's about Bonnie Prince Charlie, and that is a kind of faith that the people who supported this prince in Scotland were I'm not to say that it was a religion, but it was a way that they organized their life around believing in this.
Right.
And this is it's just an interesting song to choose in an episode that seems themed on faith.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that I like when discussions never end anywhere, where
Mhm.
that's what Steven Moffat's good at. He's like, I'm going to raise all these questions. I'm not giving you an answer.
Yeah, what are the answers,
I don't know if you saw, but he recently did an interview about like where the doctor's regeneration status is,
Okay.
as far as like how many regenerations he has left. And he
Mm-hmm.
basically said, it doesn't matter, guys. We're always going to make an
Yeah,
excuse to
exactly.
have more Doctor Who if we want it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
I
this
do
is
like Steven
exactly the
Moffat.
sort of thing.
He's a curmudgeon, but he's a lovable one.
Yeah. No, definitely haven't seen that, but yeah, I think that's a good point. That people are like, "Well, but we have to figure out how many." You can count up the regenerations, but it's just like, I mean, as soon as we quote unquote ran out, and then they're like, "Oh, new rule, Doctor gets a bunch more."
Right.
And it's like, there's no point in counting.
Yeah, they definitely didn't think ahead with that. Like, he's limited to this many regenerations. Like, they never had to say that.
But who could have guessed that it would go on so long?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, it did get canceled after Doctor
Yeah,
Seven.
true, true.
I really liked how they foreshadowed there being no real enemy when he's
Hmm.
like, "Hey, this is basically an empty planet. Why are they fighting here? That doesn't make
Yeah,
sense."
that was the moment because first the soldiers said, "Oh, they hide in the mist," and I was like, "Okay," and then they said, as soon as he said that, I was like, "Oh, there's no
Hmm.
enemy there."
It's insane. Like, they're
Yeah,
just funding a war with no enemy.
yeah.
And we get this ongoing theme of the season, orphans. This
Mm-hmm.
girl is now orphaned, but what's her found
Right,
family?
and then
And
she loses half of that. Jesus.
yeah, that's not great.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not great.
I
But well,
was
she
so
has another
surprised
AI
by the
daddy
second
now.
time. Yeah, true, true. She's got double A daddy. I guess her father was destroyed in his fight against the algorithm?
No, he was standing with them at the
He
end,
was
wasn't he?
standing. Oh, I thought that was the other guy. What's his face?
I thought that was Dad, but I don't know.
Okay, Kanto. He is the other guy.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, then I
Anyway,
guess yeah. Anyway, because maybe can they do an AI human romance with Kanto and um, what was the Verada Sethu's character's name? Doesn't matter.
oh, Mundy.
What Monday,
Yeah.
right, Monday, Sunday.
Monday, Sunday.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about this Villain Guard company because this is now like a Moffat thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Villain Guard, I guess, is mentioned in his very first episode, The Doctor Dances.
Okay.
And then it's talked about again in Twice Upon a Time when he and Bill and the first Doctor are with the 12th Doctor and they're on this like abandoned, partially destroyed factory kind of planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Villain Guard factory, which is destroyed at that point.
Okay.
And there's also, I guess, a comic that I found out about by Googling this,
Okay.
where I'm trying to figure out, I think it's the Ninth Doctor. Yeah, the Ninth Doctor. Oh, no, it's the War Doctor. I'm sorry. The War Doctor goes to the 13 weapon factories of Villain Guard before the Dalek fleet arrived to take control of them. And he used a molecular fruit bomb to turn the factories into palm trees, creating a banana grove. Which is the background to why the Ninth Doctor tells Jack Harkness he should carry a banana instead of a gun.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just had a thought. I just realized now that Disney has a stake in this, I wonder if the Doctor Who comics will show up on Marvel Unlimited.
Ooh. Well, I don't know, because don't they just have a publishing deal? Like, they don't actually own
Yeah.
the IP.
No, but I don't know if they would work out a deal for that. I don't know. I'm going to look into it.
All right. Let us know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think it's funny when people bring back their stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it was great that because we need that sort of, it doesn't, if anyone who didn't see the 11th Doctor, they miss nothing by not knowing that. He used to say that fish fingers and custard was his favorite, but for those who did, it's a reminder, like, this is still the same person in a different form, and a lot's changed, but it's still someone who experienced what we saw them experience in their previous forms.
Right. Yeah, I do like the callbacks. I like that they're not necessary. Like, you don't need to know any of that Villain Guard stuff. I just think it's fun. The banana factory. Always bring a banana to a party. Do you think that was a Villain Guard banana?
Probably.
That's how he invented the banana daiquiri. That's a must watch, by the way.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, go back. I think it's on Max in the US. I don't know where it is in other countries, but you can watch The Girl in the Fireplace, which is another Moffat story, I think.
It's on Amazon Prime here.
Okay. And probably on the BBC in the UK. But
ITV.
Yeah, ITV. But this is a great story where the Doctor goes back. He invents the banana daiquiri. He goes into 1700s France. It's great. Really great stuff.
But yeah, speaking of seeding things, we got our biggest Susan Twist cameo yet. She played the AI nurse. So it feels
I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah, see, but I think it looks like they're making her like more and more prominent until even people who aren't paying attention will start to be like, haven't we seen this woman before?
What if she's a new Missy?
Ooh, could be.
I'd be into it. Or the Ronnie, like everybody wants.
I mean, that would be a fun surprise. They did mention the Ronnie.
Yeah. I wonder, because that's the first time she's been mentioned, I think, since she was on the show with the Seventh Doctor.
And anyone who doesn't know, the Ronnie is a female Time Lord she's wicked also.
That's
like
Time
the Master.
Lady to you.
Yeah, well, whatever. I don't genderize my species. But she is like wicked, but then in a way that's focused on like science and, like the kind of wicked that I like personally.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to see some other Time Lords or ladies involved in the series, whether it's Susan or the Ronnie or Missy or whatever, because I I love when the Doctor goes up against other Time Lords. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's also when you can get more Gallifrey lore and, just general, because I'm still waiting for this, this, backstory of where the Doctor came from and you and I were having a discussion. What's the difference between a Time Lord and a Gallifreyan?
Right.
Yeah.
Right in. Yeah, I really love the Gallifrey lore. It's funny. There was another Steven Moffat quote from the 90s. I think it was 1995. They found his account where he used his real name on a forum, like way before he was the showrunner in Doctor Who. And he said, if they're rebooting this, they got to get rid of all that Gallifrey stuff. It's so stupid. All the Time Lord stuff is stupid, which is so funny because he's the one who brought it back after Russell T Davies destroyed it.
Yeah, that is interesting because it's also, he's doing similar things with stuff that Chibnall did that people don't necessarily like, but he's like, oh, wait, let me see what I can do with this.
Right, but what's so interesting to me is like this was taken care of. He never had to go to Gallifrey in his series. Oh, it's so silly.
But it seems like this stuff maybe just like niggles into his head and then he thinks about it and then he's like, well, actually, I have a story. Well, what do you think? We saw another snowfall. What do you think's going on there?
Maybe because it was a moment where she might die.
But we saw her. Is it snowing? Is it almost when she might die? When we've seen it snowing the last few episodes? Like,
because she was like in captivity of Maestro. And the other time she was being chased by the monster, right?
So when there's fear, maybe it's a comfort?
Maybe that, or like because it was there when she was born, it'll be there when she dies.
Or maybe she has a guardian angel or something. So I don't say this out of nowhere. I teased about that final quote. The Doctor says at the end of the episode, a sad old man once told me what survives of us is love. And so this is referring to what survives of us is love is the last line of a poem by Philip Larkin. And Larkin, he's an Englishman, in the mid 20th century. And this one poem called the Arundel Tomb from 1956. It's one of his most famous ones. And he wrote it after visiting the actual Arundel Tomb, which is in Chichester Cathedral. And it houses the bodies of an earl and his wife, and named Arundel, obviously. And you can see on the tomb, they're laying down and holding hands, the couple. And so the poem talks about the concept of love and how it's affected by time and more specifically death. And then it ends with what survives of us is love. And what's also interesting is another part of the poem. There's a line that says, rigidly they persisted, linked through lengths and breadths of time. Snow fell undated.
Ooh. Snow fell undated. This is good. This is some good conspiracy theorizing. Good job, Elysia.
I'm still on Susan Twist was cast because of her name. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe Susan is the guardian angel because that's Ruby's mom.
Yeah.
Although one thing I'll say is I was expecting when I don't think Ruby's a time lady because I was expecting when the robot attached to her being like 2 hearts detected or something like that. Something to
that would be
indicate that it didn't know how to treat her.
But
the
no,
one thing
they
kind of teased it though when they were like age 3,006 years or whatever it was.
Right. But I guess it's because they're in the future.
Right.
But then they couldn't find her next of kin.
Unless it was biological age.
Yeah. Yeah, because they couldn't find her next of kin, which if they were just looking in the records for her next of kin would be, her mom. But if they're looking specifically for biological, then maybe that's where it sputtered and failed.
Tricky. All right. Well, that was a fun episode. One more joke I want to point out. Why does the mind glow? Capitalism. Very funny.
But classic. This one, It did also hurt my heart in a good way. So I really like this one.
Yeah. It was the more we talk about it, the more I like it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we did. And we'll definitely be back next week for more. But first, we got to get to feedback. We've got Marilyn Arpukila, who wrote in just like you can via TARDIS at thelorehounds.com or thelorehounds.com/contact or Discord or contact forms or voicemails. Oh my.
So many ways.
Yep. Hello, John and Elysia. I'm a little behind in sending in my reactions to the different Who episodes, but I hope I can catch up with all of it now. First, I'll give you my reactions to the first 3 episodes, or rather the second and the third. You know what I mean, followed by the reaction short on to your podcast. I enjoyed the Ruby Road episode very much, though I've lost my notes that I made back in Christmas time. So I'm not going to try to resurrect those for now. Of Space Babies and the Devil's Cord, I definitely like Space Babies better. Interesting. It was cute, it was funny, it was moving, and well, I certainly have no basis on which to claim that it's classic Who, because I really am a newbie to the whole world of Who. I believe both of you said something along those lines. What I mostly enjoyed were many of the Doctor's one-liners. It was particularly touching to hear him say nobody grows up wrong, because I found myself wondering if anyone ever told Ncuti that when he was young. I also picked up on the whole "it's illegal to stop the baby station, even though nobody is supporting it anymore" reference. There was also something about refugees having to show up on the other shore on their own because nobody fetches them.
Yeah.
Good point.
I was just discussing that in the Beacon 23 episode too.
Oh.
A lot of crossovers.
All crossing over. I think I have that quote a bit messed up, but it did strike me as being somewhat politically pertinent. I cheered at the babies to the rescue line and really laughed upon learning that the monster was made of baby bogies. Definitely all structured around fairy tale tropes, which were fun. And of course, we have a fairy tale prohibition. Don't go back to your birth date. We'll see what develops from that. What do you think? I just want to pause there. So Marilyn liked the Space Babies episode better. Surprising?
I mean, it wasn't the one that I liked better, but she explains why, and I see it, that it's light and fun, and I think maybe it was a little, that was an episode that was designed for onboarding new people, and
Right.
for us who knows the lore, we're like, yeah, not really a doctor, go on, So that episode wasn't really, it was made more for Marilyn than for us.
Right. Fair enough. And I will say it might be the consensus of the community that the second episode was better, the Devil's Cord was better, but it, like you said, it's the community is mostly made up of people who have been following this a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Marilyn continues.
To each their own.
Yes. Marilyn continues, as for the Devil's Cord, at one point I thought Maestro was composing. I wish they were just decomposing. I get a little tired of the, oh my God, this monster is too much for me, we can't survive, followed by some ingenious way of being able to escape from this monster. Yes, sometimes those methods are more painful than others, but they've used that trope any number of times, at least in the few things that I've seen, and it gets a little tired. On the other hand, I agree that the Maestro is a lovely villain, and again, they were some lovely lines. I can only smile like this because I've lost too much is pure gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, Marilyn, you're going to have to get used to that trope because that's just Doctor Who.
This is like the skeletons of the episodes are pretty much that trope, but then it's really the love for the show is about the meat behind that, the thoughts and just the fun shenanigans, of course.
Right. It's an adventure of the week, right? So like you just kind of got to go with it. There is an overall arc to each season in New Who, but it's not like it's not like a lot of other shows. This is very much about a weekly adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Marilyn says, I really laughed when they started to play Dance Macabre in the final musical battle. Mm-hmm. And those were my dances back in the day. I enjoyed the pun about the twist, particularly when I saw Henry peeking around the corner of the door. It seems to me that he is clearly the twist in the plot and possibly the next child of the toy maker.
Well, he said he was the child of Maestro.
Oh, I missed that.
At the beginning of the episode.
Okay. We have already been introduced to him, and so he pops out in the middle of the twist scene without needing any explanation. I have to say, though, that the depressed Beatles were something of a downer to me. I understand why they did it the way they did it, but when they said the Beatles and Abbey Road, I was all set to go with them for something really joyous. Oh, well. And wasn't the toy maker's accent German? This is referring to something you said, Elysia, that they were all North American.
Yeah, he was faking it though, and when he dropped his accent, it's American, thankfully, because he was doing a really like hammy, stereotypical German accent.
Yes, and I believe he did some very offensive accents in the classic series.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That we would not approve of today.
Right. So this is kind of referring to that the toy maker just, puts on these personas and, does bad accents.
Yeah, I do think that his real accent, if there is one, is American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he dropped it like sometimes, like especially when he was doing that. So for anyone who doesn't know, we're referring to the 60th anniversary specials. And when he does the puppet show, and sometimes when he
that's all right then.
Yeah, exactly. He would go full American for that. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to see if Neil Patrick Harris comes back. I feel like he has to in like the season finale or something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so one thing I learned this week is that the Pantheon was actually first brought up in the Sarah Jane Chronicles, which I didn't watch that spinoff, but apparently, that was the first time they said the Pantheon. But there was a different character we haven't seen on this show.
Yeah, I never watched that either because I just never really watched any of the spinoffs. I tried Torchwood for a little bit and it was a little exhausting, so I didn't. I
love Torchwood. Torchwood's my favorite Who.
All right, fair enough. Isn't that Chibnall?
Is it? No.
I'm pretty sure Torchwood is Chibnall. Let's find out right now.
All right, let's check.
Torchwood.
Showrunner.
Torchwood. Let's see. Executive producers. Let's see. Showrunners, Chris Chibnall.
Whoa, okay. Well, I don't know why that works for me so much better than his run on Who.
I don't know, but he was the Torchwood guy.
Okay. Well, then I apologize for some blanket not liking of him because apparently I do like him a bit.
All right, let's move on to the end of Marilyn's comment. As for your pod, which I enjoyed very much, thanks, Marilyn. The one thing I was thinking of was Doctor Who having a granddaughter named Susan. It probably won't surprise John that I went directly to Discworld and thought, just like Death, what I want to know is who copied who. Terry Pratchett copied Doctor Who, if anybody copied anybody, because Terry Pratchett wrote that, I think, 20 years later. And as soon as I heard you say this, I thought for sure Susan was the woman in the cloak and therefore Ruby's mother, which would make Ruby the Doctor's great-granddaughter, which could explain a lot of why they get on so well. I'm not putting any internet points on this. I know too little of Doctor Who, but what I do know is they're forever coming up with unexpected occurrences. All the best, Marilyn. What do you think about this? That's why the Doctor and Ruby are getting on well.
I mean, there's definitely people theorizing along with Marilyn on the internet that something like that could be the case. It seems perfectly plausible to me. Again, I'm also not putting any internet points on it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely very possible. Although I will say the Doctor kind of just gets along with all of his companions pretty quickly.
Right, of course.
Like he just starts running. There's a whole joke with Donna that I always think of. She goes, "There's really an exhausting amount of running in this job, being a companion. Absurd amount of running." But yeah, he basically just says, run for your life. Let's go. That's, I think, the first thing he says to Rose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rose, I'm the Doctor. Run for your life.
Me life.
I've been starting to get more into the Ninth Doctor, so now I'm thinking about it.
If he didn't get along with them, they wouldn't come with him, right? So
right.
There has to be a click. Presumably, we don't see other people he meets where there's just no click. And he's just like, okay, well, have a nice life.
We don't get to see his game shows where he's like, it's like The Bachelor, but the companion.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they tried to make the next Doctor like a game show kind of thing?
No, that was a thing?
When Matt Smith was announced to be leaving,
Uh-huh.
They had this whole thing where they were going to do this like pageant of who's going to be the next Doctor.
What? I didn't know about that.
And you should look it up. And then they have like Peter Capaldi come out to lights and everything.
Yeah.
And it fell so flat because this was the Doctor where everyone said we're ready for a minority or a woman Doctor. And this old white man comes out and everyone went, oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
But he ended up being a great Doctor and one of my favorites.
I like it. I like him.
Yeah. But I see the point of like, why another one?
Yeah.
Anyway, funny
And
times. Go look it up on YouTube, folks.
when they did make it a woman.
Well, I don't want to litigate that tonight. Justice for Jodie Whittaker. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I think she was a good casting.
Yeah. All right, let's go into. Also, I just want to rant about one thing. Why did they tell her not to watch anything prior to her playing the Doctor?
I don't. I whenever people say that, I think that it's like it shows a lack of faith in the person. Oh, faith again.
Right.
Faith in the person that you're casting, because like, oh, if they see that, they can't help but copy it. And even if they did copy it, it wouldn't be a bad thing to a certain extent because it's still a different person.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I think Matt Smith's Doctor is very similar to Patrick Troughton's Doctor.
Okay.
And in just terms of vibe. And it's great. Like, they're both great. 2 is one of my favorite Doctors now that I'm watching the classic series.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Jodie Whittaker did the Doctor part well, but it was the writing that let her down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's talk about our programming notes. If you want to support us and get early and ad-free access to our podcast, you can go to patreon.com/thelorehounds, or you can get to the Supercast link. Both of those are within our link tree in the show notes. You can get show guides for House of the Dragon and an incoming show guide for the Rings of Power. We do plenty of additional content like Second Breakfast, Shireside Chats, and I think we're going to announce something else coming. Another Patreon exclusive podcast that's kind of new-ish. But for now, those are your benefits. Hope you'll join us. It's a great time. And we also have a Discord. If you want to join us over there, it's a great place to talk to each other. That's free. You don't have to pay anything to get into the Discord. Just come and chat along. Now we have a bunch of affiliates. Elysia, you want to talk about your work?
Sure. So on Will Shift Dust, we just released the episode talking about Beacon 23 Season 2, episodes 4 through 6. And then next week, we will be wrapping it up with the last 2 episodes of the season. And on the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, we are this week beginning with the High Republic content. So this is the era in which the Acolyte takes place. So over the next two weeks, we're going to be releasing some episodes about events in the High Republic leading up to the Acolyte, which takes place at the end of the High Republic, and which, John, you and I will be covering weekly.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. Very excited for that one. If you like sci-fi, come back to Star Wars. It won't hurt you. Radioactive
this is
Ramblings.
Starting at the beginning, so
it's
a good onboarding point.
Radioactive Ramblings is still going with their Fallout coverage. They're doing some lore-based episodes. Aaron's got another co-host, and they are going through the lore of the Brotherhood of Steel, the origins of I think it's the New California Republic. I don't know what any of these things mean, but it sounds cool. It sounds cool. I've listened to some of it, and they explain it very clearly. I hope people check it out. They're also doing some coverage of Invincible Season 2. Rings and Rituals is going. They've done up through episode 5 of the Rings of Power Season 1, looking at it through the lens of ritual. They talk about, the singing to the mountain with the dwarves. They talk about, how the elves act towards each other. It's really great podcast. I hope you'll check that out too. Please subscribe to it. Properly Howard Movie Review, in their Felonies and Fugazis season, they just put out Gross Point Blank, which I don't know what that is, but I'm going to listen to it after we're done recording because it sounds like a great time. You don't even have to watch the movies. You can just listen to them, and they just joke around about them.
You don't know what Gross Point Blank is? Oh, it's a classic.
I've never heard of it even.
Oh, okay. You should watch it. It's a fun caper.
Right in. They're going to close out the season with Rocky, which should be fun, which I also haven't seen, but don't tell David because then he'll add it to his old man list.
Philadelphia.
Okay, let's talk about really quickly what we're covering on the Lorehounds. We've got, like you said, the Acolyte that's going to be cross-posted here and on your feed. We've got House of the Dragon coming, and we are already doing our Season 1 rewatch. We've got an episode of the Star Wars Film Fest where we're talking about A New Hope, the original Star Wars 1977 movie. We're going to talk about the production of it, the plot, all that jazz. Then we also have Doctor Who every week and Silmarillion stories and plenty of other ongoing projects. Elysia, who do we have to thank today?
So let's give some shout outs to first. Thank you to our Discord server boosters who just make Discord a more fun and customizable place. So that would be Gnarls, Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Dork of the Ninjas, Duve71, and Captain Ginji56, who's a new co-host with Aaron on Fallout. So, and on our lore masters who make all of this possible, thank you so much. Sam Martian, Michael G, Michelle E, David W, Brian P, Nick W, SC, Peter OH, Bettina W, Adam S, Nancy M, Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Eric F, Matthew M, Sarah M, DJ Miwa, Andra B, Kwang Yu, Jedi Bob, Nathan T, Alex V, Sub-Zero, Aaron T, Aaron K, Dali V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, and Adrienne, always last.
I'm loving hearing. You see, we always had me and David do it, so now it's fun to hear you do the Gnarls. We get some new Gnarls in there. All right, thanks everyone. It was a lot of fun. We'll see you somewhere else in time and space. The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by the Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.
A new Star Wars journey begins in the place all good journeys begin. At, well, the beginning. This Star Wars Day, I'm excited to introduce the new Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, where we will piece together the complete story of that galaxy far, far away, in timeline order, from the dawn of the Jedi through the great unknown following the sequel trilogy. This is a podcast for both Star Wars superfans and complete newbies. Listen to the short intro episode now to hear how it works and what to expect over the coming weeks as we set the stage for the new television series The Acolyte, which we will be covering with weekly breakdowns. Subscribe to the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast wherever you listen to take part in one of the most epic and expansive stories ever told, following all the twists and turns from start to finish. May the 4th be with you all month and beyond.